I was 82 the day I decided to finally tell this story. The Texas sun was sinking low, painting the sky the color of old whiskey. I sat on my porch, rocking slow, with my dog Hank asleep by my boots. The crickets were tuning up for their nightly concert. You could almost hear the past whispering through the wind. They call me Old Jack around these parts. But once upon a time, I was just Jack, a young fool in love. I used to fix engines, chase sunsets, and think love could outlast a Texas summer. Back then, I lived near a small town off Route 66, not far from Austin. It was 1964, and the world felt like it was spinning faster every day. The Beatles were on the radio, boys were heading off to Vietnam, and gas was 29 cents a gallon. And me, I was just 24, grease under my nails and dreams in my pocket. I worked at a dusty little garage, Bobby's Auto and Gas. We fixed everything from tractors to old Chevys. That's where I first saw her, Evelyn. Lord, she was something else. Hair the color of sunset, and a smile that could stop traffic. She worked at the diner across the street, Daisy's Place. Every morning, I'd watch her pour coffee through the window while I wiped down a windshield. And every time, she'd look up, catch me staring, and wink. Took me 3 weeks to work up the nerve to talk to her. One Friday night, I crossed that road like I was going into battle. The jukebox was playing Elvis, Can't Help Falling in Love. She was serving pie to a table of truckers. When she saw me, she smiled that slow Texas smile. "Well, look who finally came in," she said. I swear my heart stopped right there. We talked till closing time, and she laughed at every dumb thing I said. By midnight, I was sure I was gonna marry that girl. We started seeing each other every day. I'd pick her up after her shift, and we'd drive out to the fields, lay on the hood, and count stars. She'd talk about going to California someday, seeing the ocean, maybe even Hollywood. I told her the only stars I needed were the ones above Texas. She said that was the sweetest thing anyone ever told her. A month later, I gave her a ring, silver with a turquoise stone. Didn't cost much, but it meant everything. She cried when she saw it. We got engaged right there under a neon sign that read open 24 hours. Those were the happiest days of my life. I thought we'd be together forever, but forever's a tricky word. One day, Bobby told me the Army had a contract. They needed mechanics in California to work on transport trucks. It was good money, better than I'd ever made. I told Evelyn it was just for a few months. She said she'd wait for me. I believed her. The night before I left, we danced at Miller's barn. A live band played Love Me Tender. She wore a white dress, and her hair smelled like wildflowers. When I kissed her goodbye, she whispered, "Come back soon, cowboy." I didn't know those would be the last words I'd hear from her for a long, long time. California was loud and fast, not like home. I worked long hours, fixing trucks for boys younger than me heading off to war. Every night I'd write her letters. Never missed a week, she wrote back at first. Her words smelled like home. Then, the letters got shorter. Then, they stopped coming. I tried to tell myself the mail was slow, but deep down, I knew. There's a kind of silence that tells you everything. After 2 months, I finished the job early. Didn't even tell anyone, just packed my bag, got in my old Ford pickup, and drove through the night. The desert stretched out like an ocean of dust. When I finally rolled into town, the sky was just turning pink. I remember thinking, she'd be surprised to see me. I parked by the diner, but she wasn't there. The waitress said Evelyn had taken a few days off. My stomach dropped. I drove to her place, little white house by the highway. Her car was there, so was another one. A black Harley Davidson. I knew then what I didn't want to know. Still, I knocked on the door. She opened it. Her hair was messy, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. Behind her, I heard music, California Dreamin' on the radio, and a man's voice. He walked out of the bedroom, long hair, denim jacket, holding a guitar. I'll never forget that look on her face, guilt, fear, and something like relief. I didn't say a word, didn't shout, didn't hit him. Just turned around, walked back to my truck, and drove off. The dust on that road followed me for miles, and maybe it still does. I drove for hours, no direction, just away. The sky turned orange, then black. I pulled over somewhere in New Mexico, middle of nowhere. Built a fire, sat by it, and stared into the flames till morning. I kept hearing that song in my head, California Dreamin'. Funny how some songs can haunt you forever. I thought about what she'd said, about wanting more. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe love wasn't enough. Out there, under the desert stars, I cried for the first time in years. Didn't even care if anyone saw. The coyotes sang with me that night. Next morning, I just kept driving. No map, no plan. Stopped in small towns, fixed cars for cash, slept in motels with flickering lights. Somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting for her to come back. The pain didn't go away, it just changed shape. Like a scar, you stop noticing it after a while. I learned to live with it. And, little by little, I started to find peace. Years passed before I came back to Texas. The town had changed. New faces, new buildings, same dusty wind. Evelyn was gone. Heard she moved to California with that musician. Never saw her again. But I kept the turquoise ring. Still have it in my desk drawer. Not because I miss her, but because it reminds me who I used to be. Sometimes, I take it out and smile, because if it weren't for her, I might never have learned what real love is. Years later, I met Mary. She was nothing like Evelyn, quiet, kind, steady. She taught at the local school, raised horses on weekends. We married in a small church, just the two of us and a few friends. No music, no grand speeches, just simple vows and honest hearts. We built a life together, slow, steady, real. I never forgot Evelyn, but I forgave her. Maybe she just wanted a different kind of life. Maybe we both did. Now, sitting here with my old bones and my memories, I think I finally understand. Love ain't about holding on. It's about letting go when the wind changes. Forgiveness, that's the only road worth taking. And sometimes, when I drive down Route 66 and the radio plays Elvis, I smile. Because once upon a time, I loved a girl who taught me how to lose and live anyway. They say time heals all wounds. I don't know if that's true, but it sure dulls the edges. By the time I hit 30, I'd stopped flinching at her name. Stopped wondering what I could have done different. Instead, I started building a new kind of life. Mary and I bought a small piece of land outside of Fredericksburg. It wasn't too much, just a few acres and a barn that leaned like it had secrets. But to me, it was heaven. We fixed it up bit by bit. Painted the fence white, planted pecan trees. Mary had a way of making a house feel like Sunday morning. She'd hum gospel songs while cooking biscuits, sunlight dancing through her hair. For the first time since Evelyn, I felt safe. No chasing dreams, no heartbreak, no drama. Just peace. We had 2 kids, a Tommy and June. Tommy got my stubborn streak, and June got Mary's heart. Life moved slow, the way it's supposed to in Texas. I opened my own garage by the highway, Jack's Auto and Tire. Folks came from miles around. Some for a tune-up, some just for a story and a cup of coffee. And I had plenty of both. Sometimes, young fellas would ask me about love. I'd tell them, son, love's like an old pickup. If you treat it right, it'll take you far. But neglect it, and it'll leave you on the side of the road. They'd laugh, but I meant every word. Mary and I made it through 47 years together. Through droughts, floods, broken tractors, and heartbreaks that weren't our own. She passed one spring morning, soft, peaceful, just drifted away in her sleep. I sat by her bed holding her hand until the sun came up. That was 10 years ago. Since then, it's just been me and Hank, my old hound, holding down the porch. Some nights, I still talk to her. She doesn't answer, but I can feel her there, in the wind, in the creak of the rocking chair. Funny thing about love, it never really dies. It just changes form. I tell my grandkids stories now. They sit cross-legged on the porch, eyes wide, listening like I'm reading from the Bible. Sometimes, I tell them about Evelyn. Not to make her the villain, but to show them what life does when you stop listening to your heart. One evening, my grandson Luke asked, "Grandpa, did you ever hate her?" I smiled and said, "For a while, but hate's a heavy saddle, boy. Sooner or later, it'll break your back." He didn't get it then, but he will someday. That's the thing about being old. You start to realize that even the worst parts of your life made you who you are. If I hadn't loved Evelyn, I'd never have learned how to forgive. If I hadn't lost her, I might never have met Mary. Life's funny that way. The good and bad are just different verses of the same song. And you can't skip the sad ones. They make the melody mean something. Sometimes I drive down Route 66 just for old time's sake. The diner's still there, though the sign's faded and the pies aren't as good. I sit at the counter, order coffee, and watch the young folks come and go. Every once in a while, I think I see her reflection in the window, that same red hair, that same laugh. But when I turn around, it's just some girl on her way somewhere new. And I smile, because I've learned to wish her well, wherever she ended up. I figure life gave her what she was looking for, and me what I needed. The road ain't always straight, but it always leads somewhere. And maybe, just maybe, we'll meet again someday, out there in that big open sky. When I tell this story, people ask if I'd do it all over again, and I always say yes. Every dusty mile, every broken promise, every tear under the desert moon, I'd live it again. Because all of it brought me here, to this porch, to this peace, to this moment. And that, my friend, is worth every bit of heartache. So if you're listening, and life's got you down, remember this: pain don't last forever. But the lessons sure do, and love, real love, it finds its way back to you, even if it takes a lifetime. Luke came by last week, asked if he could borrow my old Ford, said he wanted to take his girl out to the lake. I handed him the keys and said, "Just don't drive faster than your angels can fly." He looked at me like I was crazy, but he grinned. Reminded me of myself, wild, hopeful, in love. When he drove off, I saw my past and my future in the same rearview mirror. I reckon that's the beauty of getting old. You finally see how it all connects. The pain, the joy, the love, the loss, it all fits together like gears in an engine. You just have to keep it oiled with faith and forgiveness. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of sweet tea, watching fireflies dance across the yard. The sky was wide open, stars blinking like old friends, and I whispered, "Thank you, Mary, thank you, Evelyn, for teaching me both sides of love." Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. And I swear, the wind carried back a whisper, "You're welcome, cowboy." Maybe I just imagined it. But maybe not. Now I spend my days tending the horses, talking to neighbors, and teaching Luke how to fix engines. He's good at it, got my hands and Mary's patience. Sometimes he asks me, "Grandpa, do you miss the old days?" I smile and say, "Son, I live in them every day." That's the secret of getting old. The past never leaves, it just gets kinder. He laughs, shakes his head, and goes back to work. But I see it in his eyes. He understands more than he lets on. And that's enough for me. Maybe one day, he'll tell his own story on this porch. And maybe he'll remember my words, because if there's one thing I've learned in 82 years, it's this: life is a long road full of dust, heartbreak, and beauty. But if you keep driving, no matter how rough it gets, you'll find your way home, always. After Mary passed, the house felt too quiet, too big for one man and a dog. The whine through the windows sounded like her voice sometimes. I'd wake up expecting to smell her coffee, but there'd just be silence. For a while, I didn't know what to do with that silence. It was heavy, like a saddle with no horse beneath it. So I started talking to her, out loud, like she was still there. Maybe that's crazy, but it helped. Every evening, I'd sit on the porch, write her a letter. "Dear Mary," I'd begin. "The tomatoes finally came in. Hank chased a rabbit again. I miss your biscuits." I kept those letters in an old cigar box under my bed. Hundreds of them by now, one for every sunset she's missed. People ask why I never mailed them. I tell them she already got 'em. Just took a different route. Sometimes I think about how life keeps moving even when we don't. The seasons change, the world spins, and somehow the heart keeps beating. Funny thing, time it don't stop for anybody. But it sure slows down when you're remembering. One day, Luke found me writing one of those letters. He said, "Grandpa, you still talk to Grandma?" I said, "Every day, boy." Just because someone's gone doesn't mean they stop listening. He looked down, nodded slow. That night, he told me about his girl, Emily, said she wanted to move to New York for college. He didn't know if he should follow her or stay here. I smiled and said, "Well, son, you can't lasso love. You can only ride beside it." He didn't quite get it, but I knew he would one day. The next week, he brought her by the ranch. Emily, sweet girl, eyes full of the same kind of dreams Evelyn used to have. Ambition, fire, a hunger for the world. And Luke, Lord, he looked at her like I once looked at Evelyn. It hit me like a wave. History don't repeat, it rhymes. I watched them laughing under the pecan tree, and I prayed his ending would be kinder than mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I took out the old turquoise ring, the one I'd given Evelyn. It still shined in the moonlight, just a little duller with time. I turned it in my hand, thinking about all the years between that ring and now. All the miles, all the heartbreaks, all the grace. The next morning, I called Luke into the kitchen. Told him to sit. I handed him the ring. He said, "What's this?" I told him, a reminder that love's worth the risk. Even when it breaks you, it builds you. He held it for a long moment. Didn't say a word, just nodded. 2 weeks later, he came back grinning ear to ear. Said Emily said yes, he'd proposed under that same pecan tree. I swear, I felt Mary smiling through the walls. We had a small family gathering, laughter filling the house again. It felt alive, like the years had rolled backward. When Emily hugged me, she whispered, "Luke told me everything. You've got a beautiful heart, Mr. Jack," and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel old. I felt complete. Sometimes I think that's what life is really about, planting seeds you might never see bloom. Watching others live the chapters you once did, it's bittersweet, sure, but it's also beautiful, because love don't end, it just changes hands. Now I sit on this porch, same as always, but the silence isn't so empty anymore. It's full of voices, of Mary, of the kids, of laughter echoing through the years. Sometimes I still write letters. But lately, I start them with, "Dear life, thank you for not giving up on me." And I mean it. I used to think betrayal ruined me. But truth is, it remade me. Evelyn broke my heart, but Mary mended it. And now Luke carries it forward. That's how the circle goes. We lose, we love, we learn. We forgive, we remember, and we keep writing. Always forward, never back. The dust settles, the road goes on. And if you're lucky, you get to tell your story before the sun sets. That's all a man can ask for. As for me, I've got one last ride left in me. Maybe tomorrow I'll take the truck down Route 66 one more time. Stop at the old diner, order coffee, and sit by the window. Maybe I'll see a red-haired girl smiling at some young mechanic across the street. And maybe I'll just tip my hat and whisper, "Take care of her, son." I've been where you are, because life's too short for bitterness, too long for regret, and love, well, love's the only thing that makes it all worth it. Always has been, always will be. The sun's setting again now, Hank's snoring by my boots. The porch swing creaks slow and steady, keeping time with my heartbeat. I can smell the mesquite in the air, hear the cicadas tuning up their song. If heaven's anything like this, I'll be just fine. Sometimes, I think about all the roads I've driven, from Texas dust to California dreams, and I realize I never really got lost. Every wrong turn led me right here. Every heartache carved a place for joy to settle in. I ain't bitter, I ain't broken, I'm just grateful. Grateful for every mile, every face, every mistake that made me who I am. When people ask me the secret to living this long, I tell them, keep your heart open, your hands busy, and your soul humble. Simple as that. So if you're listening out there, maybe sitting somewhere lonely tonight, remember, don't be afraid to love again. Don't be afraid to start over. The road ain't over till it ends, and even then, who knows? Maybe it just keeps going, somewhere past the stars. And if it does, well, I'll be out there too, hat tipped low, Hank by my side, Mary waiting by the fire. And I'll smile, same as always, and say, "Welcome home, cowboy, you made it." You know, I never thought anyone would care to hear my old stories. Most of the boys I grew up with are long gone now. And these days, folks are too busy looking down at their phones to look up at the stars. But every time I tell this one, someone listens, and maybe that's enough. Because stories, they're how we stay alive, even after we're gone. Sometimes, when Luke records me talking on that fancy camera of his, I laugh. He says, "Grandpa, people online love hearing your voice." I tell him, "Son, if the internet's got room for one more cowboy, I'll take it." He laughs, but I mean it. Maybe someone out there, listening to this, is going through the same kind of hurt I once did. And maybe my words will help them hold on a little longer. That's why I'm telling it now, not for pity, not for praise, but because pain only matters if it teaches us something. And mine sure did. It taught me that love ain't perfect. It's messy, it's loud, it's stubborn as a Texas mule. But it's worth it every damn time, because love, real love, changes you. It softens the rough edges, like river stones worn smooth by time. And if you let it, it'll turn even your worst scars into stories worth telling. When I was young, I thought being strong meant never breaking. Now I know it means learning how to bend and still stand tall. Life's gonna knock you down, no doubt about that. But the trick is to keep standing, even when the dust settles heavy on your shoulders. And when the storm passes, you'll see you're stronger for having weathered it. I used to hate the man who stole Evelyn from me. Now, I hope he found peace too. Because carrying hate is like drinking poison and waiting for the other man to die. Forgiveness, that's freedom. Took me a lifetime to learn that, but I'm glad I did. Every day now feels like borrowed grace. I wake up, feed the horses, thank the Lord for one more sunrise. And when I see Luke and Emily holding hands, laughing, I think, maybe I did something right after all. Maybe that's my legacy, not the cars I fixed, not the fences I mended, but the love I passed down. Because in the end, love's the only thing that keeps this world spinning. Not fame, not money, not pride, just love. Pure and stubborn, like a wild stallion that refuses to quit running. If you're still with me, listening to this old man ramble, I want you to remember something. Don't let heartbreak turn you cold. Don't let betrayal make you bitter. Life's too short to build fences around your heart. Let the wind blow through it. Let people in, even when it hurts. Because one day, you'll look back and realize every bruise, every crack, every scar made room for the light to get in. And that light, that's what keeps you human. When I close my eyes now, I can still see her, Evelyn, dancing barefoot in that white dress, hair catching the sunset. And I can see Mary too, smiling in the kitchen, flower on her cheek, singing along to Patsy Cline. Funny how love stretches across time like that, doesn't fade, doesn't die. It just waits for you, somewhere beyond the horizon. I like to think they're both out there, looking down, shaking their heads at this old fool still telling stories, but maybe they're proud too. Because after everything, I finally learned what they were both trying to teach me, that love isn't about keeping someone forever. It's about loving them enough to let them go when it's time. And trusting that what's meant to stay will find its way back, always. Now the sun's just about gone, painting the sky that same old whiskey gold. The kind that makes you feel like you've seen enough, but still want one more sunset. Hank's tail thumps beside me, lazy and loyal. And I take a deep breath, smell the dust, the mesquite, the life. If tonight's my last night on this porch, I reckon I've had a good run. I loved hard, worked honest, forgave slow but true. And if I could tell my younger self one thing, it'd be this: son, the road's longer than you think, but the view's worth every mile. So if you're out there, heartbroken, lost, wondering if it'll ever stop hurting, it will. It might take time, it might take years. But someday, you'll wake up, and the pain will feel like an old song, still familiar, but soft now. And you'll hum along instead of crying. That's how healing works. Slow, quiet, sure, I guess that's my story. Dust, love, betrayal, and forgiveness, all tangled up in one lifetime, and I wouldn't trade a second of it. Because it made me who I am, just a cowboy with a story, sitting under a Texas sky. And if that's all I ever was, well, that's enough. The stars are out now, clear and bright. I look up and whisper, "See you soon, darlin'." Maybe she hears me. Maybe they both do. I stand, stretch my tired legs, and smile. The porch creaks beneath me, same as it did 50 years ago. I pick up my hat, dust it off, and place it on my head. Hank lifts his head, tail wagging, ready for one last walk. We step off the porch, the dirt cool beneath our boots and paws. The air smells like rain coming, somewhere far off. Thunder rumbles, soft, like a memory. I turn back one last time, looking at the house, the rocking chair, the life I built. And I whisper, "Thank you." Then I walk toward the horizon, the same way I always have, steady, unhurried, heart wide open. The road stretches ahead, long and golden in the moonlight. And I can almost hear her voice again, singing low and sweet, "Come back soon, cowboy." I tip my hat, smile at the stars, and keep walking. Because love never ends, it just changes form and waits for you down the road. They say every cowboy rides into the sunset one last time. My grandpa, Jack, he did just that. It was late summer, 3 years ago. The air smelled like rain and dust, same as always. He was sitting on that old porch, talking to me about forgiveness. Said, "Luke, don't waste your life hating people. It's like punching the wind. All you get is tired." I laughed, told him he sounded like one of his own stories. He smiled, leaned back, and said, "Good, means you were listening." That was the last real thing he ever said to me. Next morning, I found him in his chair, hat in his lap, dog curled up beside him. Looked peaceful, like he'd just decided to rest for a bit. The coffee pot was still warm, and his notebook was open, a pen lying across the page. There was only one sentence written there. It said, "I forgave her, and that's how I found peace." I read it over and over, until the words blurred. That's when I realized he wasn't just telling stories all those years. He was teaching me how to live. At the funeral, people came from miles around. Old ranch hands, neighbors, even a few folks I'd never met. Each one had their own Jack story. How he helped fix their truck, or lent them money, or gave them advice that stuck for life. He never asked for much, just your time and a good cup of coffee. When we buried him, I placed that notebook in the casket beside him. It felt right. He always said, "A man's words outlive his breath." Guess he was right about that too. Because even now, when I walk past that porch, I swear I can hear him. That slow, gravelly voice drifting through the evening air. "Luke, don't let the world harden you. Keep your heart soft, son. That's how light gets in." I smile every time. Sometimes, I sit there with my camera, filming the sunset, just like he used to. Those videos I posted of him talking, millions of people watched. Commented things like, "Your grandpa's words healed me. I lost my wife too, and this helped." He would have laughed at that, said something like, "Well, I'll be damned. Guess I'm famous now," but deep down, he'd be proud. Because his stories, his pain, his forgiveness, they reached people. They mattered. That's what he always wanted. Not to be remembered as a hero, but as a man who tried. A man who failed, loved again, forgave, and kept going. And that's exactly who he was. Now the ranch is mine. I still keep his chair out there, just how he left it. Hank Jr., the pup's grandson, sleeps beside it. And every morning, when I drink my coffee, I raise the mug toward the sunrise and say, "Morning, Grandpa." The wind usually answers, soft and warm. Some days, I swear I can smell that old tobacco he used to smoke. Other days, I just sit there, quiet, because I know he's out there, somewhere beyond the hills, under that big Texas sky. Probably riding that same old trail he always talked about. The one that never ends, and when my time comes, I hope I meet him there. He'll probably be sitting by a fire, 2 mugs ready, looking up at the stars. And he'll grin, tip his hat, and say, "Took you long enough, boy." I'll sit beside him, and we'll talk about life, love, all of it. Just like old times, and the sky will stretch wide and endless, gold fading into blue. Because for men like him, stories never really end. They just keep riding on, carried by the ones who remember.